Let's just say you're on Facebook, enjoying a good primal scream into the void. You post one of your trademark rants. This time it's some thoughtless outburst about vegetarians. But here your friend Carl has posted a reply. Carl is that guy who is always first to post a Snopes article to debunk your post when it wasn't all that well researched. This time, recognizing that your screams into the void are really just attempts to connect and be heard made in vain, he replies with a post to ArguAtlas in hopes that it will soothe you. Let's see where it goes. We are taken to an argument very similar, if less inflammatory, than your own. This is the standard ArguAtlas mobile interface. The black area in the center contains the argument at hand. At the top of this section is a unique identifier and a place to toggle through different cohorts. Tags are down at the bottom. In the main body, you have the most popular phrasing of the argument according to the cohort, and then an explication link to whatever it believes to be the best content, article, video, clip, study, whatever, to drive the opponent home. Finally, you have the option to either accept or reject this argument, the first step to adding your own unique voice to the fray. Before we accept this argument that we are clearly favoring from the get-go, we're going to do a little due diligence, just to make sure we are as right as we think we are. You can swipe down to see the arguments in the because, or up for the arguments that follow in the so. But let's start by swiping left to take a look at the rebuttals. Here we have all the arguments to reject, ordered by the weight collectively given by the opposition in this cohort. If you want to see the full list and the weights given to each, there's a link at the bottom. Just the arguments with the most statistically significant weighting are displayed initially. We don't see much here to pique further interest, so let's move on. We're still leaning towards accept, but let's check because. Swipe down. Here we see the vast majority of the cohort that accepts this argument put their weight in the first argument listed, that meat was essential to our evolution. But for us, this is a little surprising. We always heard that our canines were the clearest sign of our meat-eating birthright. It is on the list, but why only 2% weight? We would have thought much more. Let's follow that one to learn more. That takes us to a new argument page, the same interface, this time for the teeth argument. Now let's check its rebuttal. Alright, let's see what they have to say. Oh. It actually looks like these are pretty good reasons to reject. Huh. Well, I guess canines meaning meat eater may have just been a myth. But let's be sure. To double check that there aren't any massively compelling reasons to accept just as good as all those reasons to reject, let's swipe down on the because section. Well, that seems true, but that does nothing to support our teeth actually telling us anything about our diet. Swipe back. I think we gotta reject this argument. Oh yeah, big time. Hardly anyone in this cohort thinks this anymore. See, once I accept or reject an argument, you see what percentage of the cohort also accepts or rejects the argument. And I also have new privileges as someone who has taken a position. I can add my own weight to the rebuttals I think most clearly delegitimize this argument. But let's leave this weak argument alone for now and see if we can find some surer footing. Back on the meat being natural argument, we see why 70% of the other advocates put their weight on the first argument, that meat was essential to our evolution. We could follow that argument as well to verify, as we did before, but let's just keep moving. We're going to go ahead and accept this for now. Again, we have taken a position, so now we have access to new abilities to shape the argument. Unlike before, we accept this argument, so our interests are aligned largely with the other advocates that want to see this argument be as strong as possible. That's why we now have access to that edit button down on the bottom right-hand corner of the black square. There we can cast our vote for the very best phrasing of this argument from among its many variations to bring forth the most concise, the most unimpeachable, the mont juste. And we can also vote for the very best explication link. For now, let's skip the pedantry and see what follows in the so of our newly accepted argument. Now this is interesting. The argument I was expecting to see is at the top, but it is followed very closely behind by two others that take things just a bit further. The first argument listed assumes this to be a black or white proposition, either for meat or against meat. But the next two open the conversation around whether we should accept the status quo of our current consumption rates or if they should be reduced. I'm going to investigate my initial instinct just to see if there is anything obvious that makes ending the argument here less satisfying than expected. We are now on that argument's page. Let's check out the rebuttals. Let's see what they got. Our biology doesn't define us. Fair. Our consumption is greater than it should be, I suppose. Maybe that would be compelling, if true. Killing animals is wrong. Probably missing the mark with this audience. See, fourth, I always hear it as healthier, but it doesn't seem to take into account my mental health. This last one, though, meat production is harmful to the environment. We are deeply concerned about climate change and our impact on the environment, but have never heard meat production playing a role in this issue. Let's check that one out. I want to see what the case is to be made here, so I'm going to jump right into the explication this time. So we take a few minutes to read the article and we are converts! After reading the evidence presented in the article, we are shocked to learn how damaging meat production is, and a little embarrassed we were so unaware. We may not fully be ready to give up meat, it is just too delicious and our willpower sucks, but we definitely see the need to make a change. Any good rebuttals at all? No. So accept this. Now back to the argument I came from, and now reject that. Now let's exercise our right to weigh in on the rebuttals. Click on the newly accessible Weigh In button at the bottom. When you weigh in, you can scroll through the whole list of arguments ordered by the cohort's weighting. But we have the chance now to weight it how we feel makes the most sense. If an argument you want to make is not currently associated, you can add new. But all the arguments we need are already here. Let's get more eyes on this ecological disaster right under our noses. From our perspective, most of these arguments pale in comparison to this newly discovered ecological issue. So I'm going to give that the bulk of our weighting, saving a little for the first argument because we think that is still a good point too. And submit. And look at that. Our heavy weighting of the ecological argument was enough to bump it up the list of this larger cohort we belong to. More weight should increase its visibility and credibility, improving the likelihood that others will recognize its importance as well. Now, if I wanted, I can always review my personal weighting by changing the cohort view to just me. This is how we can return to this perspective whenever we want to, in case it needs to be adjusted. Who knows? Maybe after more exploration we'll come around on the ethics of killing animals also. Let's get back to the main cohort and keep shaping. Now, back to the main view, and back to the argument we came from. And we still accept this, but we have some different thinking around what it means. So let's weigh in on the so's. Click the bottom. We no longer think you should stop at just being okay with meat in your diet. Even if you like meat, you should recognize the value in reducing consumption. So we give all our weight to the second argument. And submit. And luckily enough, once again, our backing for reduction was enough to now make our preferred argument rank first in this cohort. Let's pause there. Consider what we accomplished in the course of just 10 minutes, including the time it took us to read that outside explication article. We were exposed to over 20 unique arguments. We helped to shape the dialogue by taking a position on 3 of them and redistributing some of the weight around more than 10. Not to mention the fact that we learned enough for our thinking to evolve and for us to be more confident in our adjusted position. This is a hypothetical, but imagine what would happen if we scaled up. Say the average ArguAtlas user spent an hour on the platform over just the course of a week. Now imagine 10,000 users. In just a week, those 10,000 people could collectively be exposed to over 1.5 million arguments. They would take positions on some 180,000 of them and weigh in on over 600,000. Imagine what we would learn as that dialogue out of that takes shape. Even in such a very short time, with a relatively small set of users, the data set would be massive.